Okay. So here we go. So number 3, so picking up where we left off. So number 3, A was -1 because it had a negative in front. And then we had, it was in factored form, right? Factored form like you guys did on the quiz the other day, okay? Like, not the other day, last week, okay? And then, so the first thing we did was find the x-intercepts. So to do that, we take what was in parentheses and we set it equal to 0, right? That's what we did yesterday. We took what was in parentheses, set it equal to 0, and we got 2 answers. Those are both x-intercepts. 1, 0, -5, 0. We made dots there. And then the next thing it said was, okay, what's the axis of symmetry? The axis of symmetry is always going to be halfway in between. So halfway in between +1 and -5 was -2. How do I know that? Because I added them up and divided by 2. And I found the halfway point. Okay, that's where we stopped. Okay, so now that I have that, the next thing I got to do is find, so that dot, so I got to find the vertex now. I got to find the vertex. The vertex is going to be somewhere along this green line here. I don't know if it's up here, in the middle, or down here. I don't know where it's at, but it's going to be on that line. So what am I going to need to do to figure out where along that line it is? Plug it back in to the original equation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to plug in, I'm going to rewrite the old equation. Y equals -1 parentheses x -1 x plus 5. But this time, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to write x. I'm going to write what I got here. -2. -2. Okay. And then I'm going to simplify that. So I have -1, and then in parentheses here, -2 minus 1, -3. In parentheses here, -2 plus 5, +3. Multiply straight across, and I get a +9. So now I know my vertex is going to be at -2, 9. I know it's at -2 because it has to be on that green line. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. How do I find the y-intercept for anything? Plug in 0 for x. Plug in 0 for x. Anytime you want to find the y-intercept. Doesn't matter what unit, what chapter it is. Well, first of all, is that red dot? So it's this red dot up here. Is this red dot going to be a maximum or a minimum? It's going to be a maximum. Yeah, how do I know? A is negative, and the only way for it to go to connect with the other dots is going arrows down. So it has to be arrows down. So if it's arrows down, it's going to be a maximum at y equals 9. We always use the y for that guy, okay? So the last thing we got to do before we can graph is the y-intercept. Okay, we plug in 0 to the original. So the original was -1 times x minus 1 times x plus 5. But instead of x, we're going to plug in 0. So I'm going to do the same thing I just did, except now I'm going to get different numbers. 0 minus 1 is -1. So I have a -1 in front. I have a -1 in here, and I have a +5 in here. So -1 times -1 times +5, +5. So the y-intercept is going to be 0. X is always 0. And for this one, I got y is 5. So I'm going to go make that dot now. One, two, three, four, 5. And then I make a dot on the other side because the green line, it reflects across the green line, right? 2 units away here, so it's going to be 2 units away here. So I make another blue dot right there. And then I sketch. Done. Okay. So we're going to do that again for number 4, example number 4 now. Same, it's so the one of the hardest things. So last period, we were doing the same thing. And the hardest thing for students was, what form is it in? They'd look at something and they'd be like, I don't know what form it's in. The hardest thing is what form it's in. Is it in standard form? Is it in vertex form? Is it in factor form? Once you know that, then just follow the steps. Okay. Well, this one's pretty obvious because in fact, it's in the factored form. We just did a factored form. Okay, but it's not always going to be obvious. So you got to be able to tell. Okay. So since it's in factored form, let's write that down. Since this one's in factored form, right? It's got 2 parentheses. That's usually the giveaway. If it has 2 sets of parentheses, it's probably factored form. All right, so what is A up here? 3. Arrow's going to be up, right? Arrow's going to be pointed up, which means I'm going to have a minimum. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is find the x-intercepts, just like I did the last time. So to do the x-intercepts, I have to, what's in parentheses, set it equal to 0. Just like you did on your quiz last week. Okay, so I'm going to solve these. So this guy, I'm subtracting 5 from both sides. -5. Over here, I'm subtracting 9 from both sides. -9. Those are my x-intercepts. So when we graph them, they need a point. So this one's going to have 5 for x, or sorry, -5 for x, 0 for y. This one's going to be. So those are the 2 dots I'm going to make first. Dot. 6, 7, 9, make a dot. Okay. Now I can find axis of symmetry. Well, my notes in the front say axis of symmetry. How do I find axis of symmetry after I have these guys? Halfway in between, halfway in between. So you can actually count it, or you can just add these two up and divide by 2. -5 and -9, you can add those up and divide by 2. But this one is not too bad to tell. Let's see, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4 in between, so half of 4 is 2. So it looks like -7 is going to be. Okay, so that's at -7. Okay. And then the problem before that, we used it to find the vertex. So the original equation was 3 times x plus 5, x plus 9. So what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to plug in x. I'm going to have a -7. I'm going to plug in -7 there, plug in -7 there. So -7 plus 5 is a -2. -7 plus 9 is +2. What do you get when you multiply straight across? -12. That means my vertex is at, we plugged in -7, and then we got out -12. So that's a little bit off our graph. 11, 12 down here. It goes down to 10. It goes down, 10 is the last one, so 11 would be here, and then 12 would be here. So it's a little bit off our graph. Okay. The next one was maximum or minimum. So minimum, good. We already kind of knew that before, because when we sketched our graph up here, we knew it was a minimum. So the minimum at y equals -12. So how do we know if it's a minimum or maximum? Good question. So the easiest way to tell is look at A. If A is a positive number, it's always going to be arrows going up. So if it's arrows going up, it's going to be a minimum. It's going to have a bottom, right? There is no top. The arrows go up forever. If it's going to have a maximum, A is going to be negative. So look at A. If A is positive, arrows are going up. So it means it's going to have a bottom minimum. If A is negative, arrows are going to be going down. It means it's going to have a top maximum. Okay. Max, min. Okay. Alrighty. So one more thing we got to do before we sketch is I got to find a y-intercept. Anytime you're finding y-intercept, plug in 0 for x. Anywhere you see an x, plug in a 0. So I'm going to erase the x's, plug in 0, plug in 0, plug in 0. So I get 3 times 5 times 9. Can be really big. 3 times 5 is 15, times 9 is almost 150. It's 141. No, what's 15 times 9? 135. Thank you. So that means I have a y-intercept way above at negative, sorry, not negative, 0, comma 135. That's not even close to being on my graph. So if it's that high, don't worry about it. And look at, I don't even need to worry about it because I have enough dots on my graph where I can sketch it anyway, right? I have a vertex and then I have 2 dots over here for x-intercepts. So I don't need it. So I'm going to come down, come back up. Oops. Okay. I'm done. So we have 3 forms that we've graphed now. We have standard form, vertex form, factor form. Okay. So the first thing, so anytime it's asking you anything about a graph, first thing you got to know is which form is it in? Which form is it in? Is it in standard form? Is it in vertex form? Is it in factor form? Once you know that, then you can follow these steps that we just did here, or the steps that we did on Monday. We also have these too, right? That we did on Monday. Okay. That's for standard form. Okay. Okay, so what I want you to do now is I'm gonna, well, Mariana, can you pass out the tape in the back? Tape these in.